Early arrivals Muslims in America before the Revolution. Yo, America, let's rewind the clock way back. Before the Founding Fathers, before the Revolution, there were Muslims here. We're talking the 1500s, people. Most of these early Muslim Americans were brought over on slave ships. They came from Africa, ripped from their homes and families. Imagine being forced onto a boat, chained up, sailing across the ocean, knowing you might never see your loved ones again. That was their reality. These African Muslims were skilled workers, scholars, even royalty in their own right. But in the eyes of their captors, they were just property. They weren't allowed to practice their religion openly. Many were forced to convert to Christianity. But you can't erase someone's faith that easily. Despite the brutal conditions, many Muslims held on to their beliefs in secret. They prayed in whispers, fasted when they could, and shared stories of their faith with their children. These early Muslim Americans may have been silenced, but their presence left an indelible mark on this nation's history. They were here from the beginning, contributing to the building of this country, even though their stories were largely ignored. But we remember, we see you. A nation forged, a faith hidden Islam in the 19th century. Fast forward to the 1800s, the United States is growing, expanding westward, and guess what? More Muslims are arriving. This time they're coming voluntarily, mostly from the Ottoman Empire and South Asia. These new immigrants were looking for a better life, just like everyone else who came to America. They were entrepreneurs, shopkeepers, laborers. They settled in big cities and small towns, contributing to the fabric of American society. But life wasn't always easy for these early Muslim communities. They faced prejudice and discrimination. People didn't understand their customs or beliefs. Imagine trying to explain Ramadan to your coworkers when they've never even heard of it. Despite the challenges, Muslims persevered. They built their lives, raised their families, and held on to their faith. They established small mosques and Islamic centers, creating spaces where they could connect with their communities and pass on their traditions to future generations. A new century, a familiar struggle. Muslims in the early 1900s. The 20th century dawned, bringing with it new opportunities and challenges for Muslim Americans. Immigration from Muslim-majority countries continued, albeit in smaller numbers due to restrictive immigration laws. The early 1900s saw the establishment of some of the first permanent mosques in the United States. These mosques served as vital hubs for Muslim communities, providing a place for prayer, religious education, and social gatherings. Despite these strides, Muslim Americans continued to face discrimination and prejudice. They were often stereotyped as being foreign, exotic, or even dangerous. The media often portrayed Islam in a negative light, fueling fear and suspicion. Yet, Muslim Americans refused to be defined by these stereotypes. They worked hard, contributed to their communities, and fought for their rights as American citizens. They understood that their destinies were intertwined with the fight for justice and equality for all. A time of change, the Civil Rights era and its impact on Muslim Americans. The 1950s and 60s witnessed a seismic shift in American society, the Civil Rights Movement. African Americans rose up to demand an end to segregation and discrimination, inspiring other marginalized groups to fight for their own rights. The Civil Rights Movement had a profound impact on Muslim Americans. They saw parallels between the struggles of African Americans and their own experiences with prejudice and discrimination. Many Muslim Americans joined the movement, recognizing that the fight for civil rights was a fight for everyone's freedom. Malcolm X, a prominent figure in the Nation of Islam, emerged as a powerful voice for black empowerment and self-determination. Although his views on race relations were initially seen as controversial, his message of racial pride and justice resonated with many, both within and outside the Muslim community. The Civil Rights era marked a turning point for Muslim Americans. They became more vocal in advocating for their rights, challenging discrimination, and asserting their place in American society. The fight for civil rights empowered Muslim Americans to embrace their identities and demand recognition as equal members of the American tapestry.